Welcome back to the Daily Signal. And this is another episode of System Fracture, where we break down the vulnerabilities that shake the digital world. Today we are talking about something serious, FortiWeb's new zero-day CVE 2025-64446. And yes, it's already being exploited in the wild. If you run a FortiWeb WAF, your defense layer might actually be your attacker's backdoor. That's not a metaphor. Attackers have been using this flow to create admin accounts on internet exposed devices in seconds. CISA has already thrown this into the known exploited vulnerability CAV catalog with a federal remediation deadline. So, in today's episode, I'll walk you through exactly what happened, why it matters, and how attackers abuse this weakness, and most importantly, what to do right now to protect yourself. So, let's fracture the system. Let's break down this vulnerability in plain English. This CVE is a combination of two nasty things. First, a path traversal, which lets an attacker reach internal components of the WAF that should never be exposed. Second, an authentication bypass, where the attacker tricks the system into believing they are someone they are not, in this case, an administrator. Chain those together and you will get full takeover. No credentials, no phishing, no brute force, just a crafted request hitting an exposed management interface. The timeline is worrying. Exploitation started back in October. The advisory came weeks later, and only after that did we get a patch. Long story short, attackers had a head start. Here's the slide that makes everyone sit up straight. Is your FortiWeb device vulnerable? Fortinet released patched versions across all major branches, 8.0, 7.6, 7.4, 7.2, and 7.0. If you're not running the latest patch in your branch, you are vulnerable. A lot of researchers noticed something strange. The fix seems to have appeared before the advisory, a so-called silent patch. That means attackers could have reverse engineered the fix before any defenders even knew there was a bug. But the most important sentence here is the one at the bottom of the slide. If your management interface is exposed to the internet, your risk is immediate. If your WAF's admin panel is reachable from outside, this vulnerability becomes a straight line from the attacker to your crown jewels. Let me explain how the exploit works at a high, safe conceptual level. Think of it as three main steps. Unauthorized access attempts. The attacker reaches a part of the system they should never see, thanks to the traversal bug. Identity misuse. Once they are in, they present fake identity metadata that the system mistakenly trusts. Essentially, hey, I'm an admin, and FortiWeb says, sure, come on in. Step 3, unauthorized admin control. Now the attacker has full administrative rights, creating accounts, modifying configs, and planting long-term persistence. This is the perfect example of why defense in depth matters. When a security device trusts anything implicitly, the fallout is always catastrophic. Okay, this is the part everyone's been waiting for. The GitHub repo tool that's been circulating in the community. Let me set the record straight though. This thing is not an exploit. This is the equivalent of shining a flashlight down a dark hallway. No kicking the door in. Exploit.py, despite the name, is basically a reconnaissance probe. The FortiWeb research class spins up a controlled, non-verified HTTP session, stable, quiet, subtle. Then the research endpoint method walks through a handful of traversal-style paths, like someone gently tapping different panels on a wall, listening for hollow spots. It doesn't run commands, it doesn't modify configs, it doesn't touch system state, there's no payload, no injection, no exploitation. What it does is tell you when something responds that absolutely shouldn't. And when it does, that is your warning flare. That's the moment defenders know, okay, something's exposed, something's reachable, something is wrong. This tool is a mirror, a way to see what an attacker would see without becoming one. And I'm going to say this very clearly because it matters. Everything I'm showing you is for authorized, ethical, defensive research only. If you run this on systems you don't own or control, you are not doing cybersecurity, you're just committing a crime. System fracture is about understanding the cracks before they become collapses. And the script, well, it helps you see those cracks safely. Now let's get practical. If you run FortiWeb, you need to determine whether someone already took advantage of this. Here are 6 plus 1, 7 high-value hunts that will give you answers fast. The new or modified local admins, well, if a new admin suddenly appeared after October 2025, especially with no change ticket, that's a red flag. Changes to admin profiles, trust hosts, or access profiles, attackers often loosen access controls after getting it. 3. Unfamiliar sources IP hitting management, especially international or cloud provider origins. 4. WebSocket or command line interfaces access without a corresponding logging event. That shouldn't happen. If it did, someone bypassed authentication. 5. HTTP requests carrying weird or custom headers, especially base64 encoded JSON. That's a big tell for identity impersonation, so the metadata we were talking about earlier. 6. Bursts of failed actions followed by a sudden success. That pattern often means attackers were probing. And the +1, the 7th, is compare pre-patch versus post-patch behavior. On a fixed system, traversal attempts should get blocked outright. If they weren't, something tampered with your device. Do these checks and you will have a clear picture of your exposure. This slide is the heart of your action plan. First, patch. Update to the fixed version in your branch immediately. The remediation is clean, stable, and confirmed to block exploitation. Second, lockdown management access. The management interface should never be exposed directly to the internet. Not this week, not ever. Restrict it to internal networks or a management VPN and enforce ACLs, access controls list, or geofencing. Third, prove it. Rotate your admin credentials, audit every admin user, and review logs going back to October 1st, 2025. If you see anything suspicious, escalate it. Don't wait. Remember that for federal agencies, the due date is November 21st, 2025, but honestly, your due date better to be today. So now let's take a look from the outside. Let's zoom out and talk geopolitics for a moment, because this vulnerability isn't happening in a vacuum. State-aligned actors, especially those focused on pre-positioning, love edge devices. Fortinet boxes, VPN appliances, routers, these devices sit at the border of our networks, often overlooked, minimally monitored, and always online. Perfect territory for long-term persistence. This type of tradecraft is exactly what we saw with Volt Typhoon. Living off the land, avoiding malware, remaining invisible, staying in place for months, sometimes years, waiting for the signal. Now, add something else to the equation, the silent patch and the late advisory window. That delay gave attackers a first mover advantage, a window where they could reverse engineer the fix and strike before defenders knew what to look for. So What's the board level takeaway? Edge device patch SLAs must be measured in days, not weeks. Periodic verification of management plane exposure is mandatory, and WAF, just like VPNs and firewalls, must be treated as tier 0 assets, no commodity appliances. This is digital geopolitics in action, and vulnerabilities like these are the chess pieces. All right, so let's wrap it up. CVE 2025-64446 is a reminder that our edge devices, the tools we rely on to protect everything else, can become the very things that compromise us. Your immediate priorities are the patch, as we said, lockdown management access, and hunt for indicators. And of course, elevate edge device governance to a true tier 0 concern. If today's episode helped you understand the mechanics, the risks, and the bigger strategic picture, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe, and check out the rest of the videos in the System Fracture playlist. This series is all about making complex vulnerabilities understandable and exposing the deeper systemic patterns underneath them. Thanks for watching the Daily Signal. This is Max, Point Break Security. Stay alert, stay informed, and as always, keep fracturing the system.